Hello everyone, Kinetic Chaos here. We are joined by Mr. Larry Hoff. We are going to turn on the podcast in just one moment as soon as I have the feed up. Hope everyone had a wonderful Monday. There we are, right there.
All right.
Okay, you ready to go?
Let's do it.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Kinetic Chaos Podcast number 55. I am your host, Will, joined as always by my good friend Wes.
Sitting opposite him this time instead of to his left.
So that's exactly right, because today we are joined by Mr. Larry Hoff, who is joining us for the third time. We are very excited to have him on the show today. We've got some exciting stuff. We're not doing a total normal show today. We've got kind of our normal Monday show, and then Larry's going to chime in on some of the hot sheet, and we've got some questions later on as well.
All right.
You
Good.
excited today?
I stay in. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
that's
All right.
exactly
But I
right.
understand you don't have a normal show. Does that mean I'm abnormal here?
Well,
Is that correct?
it's not that you're abnormal. We're actually the abnormal ones.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up.
Exactly. You're normalizing us to some
There you
degree,
go.
that's
Right.
for sure. So, well, as always, we like to start with something good that happened to us since the last time we recorded. Wes, do you have something for us today?
Yeah, something nice and trivial. It's that my daughter got her Halloween costume picked out. My wife made my son's costume, which is a dinosaur. But my daughter wanted to be Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and we started to go the route of making it, and then we figured out the fabric was going to be about $100.
Are you kidding me?
Not including my wife's labor having to make the thing. So we decided, we'll scrap that and go ahead and buy it instead. So.
Wow.
But yeah, so we got it in the mail, and she tried it on yesterday, and she was all fired up and excited. So
That was a very pretty picture
Yeah.
of her that you posted. I like the.
Oh, the yellow one.
The yellow
That
dress,
was
yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yes, it was gorgeous. Yeah.
I've got to love the pre-try-on of the Halloween costume, because then you know that, like I've done in the past, the first, or 10 minutes before you go out trick-or-treating, you're throwing the kid into the pumpkin costume or something like that, and all of a sudden one arm's not there, or it's too short here. So well done. As always, Wes is pre-planning everything very,
betcha.
very well. So, well, something good that happened to me, again, pretty trivial, is that I've got new eyeglasses, and they're waiting for me at Costco. Now, this may be somewhat of a minor thing, but I'm pretty blind, even with the glasses that I have on, and so I've got readers now for the very first time in my life, just dedicated readers and trifocals.
Whoa.
Some new technology they've got that allows you to see the top far away, and then intermediate, and then blind. So I'm pretty darn excited for that. So that's I get to go pick those up later on this evening, and I'm not kidding. I have been just chomping at the bit to get these, because it is going to make a huge difference. The doctor showed me how blind I was last time I was in there compared to these. He said, I don't know how you even are seeing anything. So we're hopefully everything's going well on the computers and all that kind of stuff. So, well, we're going to get into the hot sheet right now.
Oh, we got something
Wait a
good
minute,
for
wait a
Larry.
minute.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
have a good thing?
Yeah, jeez, I'm sorry. I'm just so
Yes.
excited.
Well, my very good thing this past week is I passed another birthday.
You did.
Oh, nice.
And the interesting thing about that is my grandson, who just turned 4, was born on my birthday.
Really?
So we celebrate together every year, and it was just this past week. So I'm now over 35, so we can
Okay.
start approaching senior status.
Did you do anything fun?
We went to Great Wolf Lodge.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
very nice. Now, what do you think of that? Was it as exciting as I've heard? I've never been there.
Oh, you have to go. It's great. I mean, just go yourself. But it would be better if you drug along a kid with you. But yeah, for kids of all ages, and it's just a magical place.
I've heard that they've got all kinds of things to do for both adults and for kids, which is kind of nice.
The adults mostly just tag along with the kids.
Right.
I mean, but it's an experience. You have to do that.
Yeah, well, you've been up there, haven't you, Wes?
No, I've not.
You haven't?
Nope.
Oh, you,
I'm not.
you guys need
Driven
to go.
by it plenty of times.
Yeah,
but
on my
never
way
been
to the
there, yeah.
casino. But
That's right.
yeah, well, I've heard that it's kind of like a little miniature Vegas for kids, because they've got the water slides, they've got they got an arcade and all the kinds of stuff like that. So you kind of leave the kids. I'm sure there are parents that just leave the kids there and they head over to Lucky Eagle. Not that I've talked to anyone that's done that. So, Anyway, so we will get into the hot sheet now.
Sure,
I
good.
apologize for that. But number one here, we have an American pastor that was freed after 2 years in a Turkish prison, and this was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, this is Andrew Brunson, and he's been in the news, in and out of the news. There's been behind-the-scenes negotiations for a long time trying to get him freed, and it finally happened after almost 2 years. He's about 2 or 3 weeks shy of 2 years in captivity. And as of yesterday, I believe he arrived home. He took a flight home and then went pretty much straight to the Oval Office and met with President Trump in the Oval Office.
When he got off the plane, he was handed a military-style folded flag.
Really?
And he just put it to his lips and gave it a kiss. I mean, it's having someone understand the importance of being a United States citizen at that point means more to that person than a lot of us can even imagine.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. And from what it sounds like, the meeting at the Oval Office, they had Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was there, and the president made some comments that were a little bit kind of sounds like he took a little bit of a shot at President Obama by saying that this administration does not negotiate for terror or for hostages or pay for hostages.
Yeah.
But that's not surprising. But yeah, it's great to see him home, and it sounds like he was actually freed by a judge there, but they were wanting, in return, a prisoner. I don't know if it's a prisoner that we have for them or something else. Do you remember?
I don't know if it was somebody that we had in captivity, or if it was one of the allied nations that had somebody of theirs that they were wanting to try to negotiate with.
Yeah, but we didn't do that. So number 2 in the hot sheet here is that lately we found out that the Secret Service actually foiled an assassination attempt on President Trump, and this was last year?
This was November of last year, yeah. A pretty wild deal. I didn't even know about it until I read it in the news a few days ago, and primarily read about it because National Geographic had done a documentary for it, which aired for the first time last night. This was dating back, like I said, to November of 2017 when President Trump did a state visit to the Philippines. And the Secret Service had detected the usual chatter overseas of, terrorist cells or, wannabe terrorists making veiled threats and whatnot. And obviously you have to decide whether those are legit or not. And on the flight, on the way over there, he was airborne when they came across another threat on Twitter that they deemed credible. I don't know how they did that via cross-checking, and evidently it was 2 different guys on the ground, one of whom was affiliated with ISIS. They were in the Philippines, and by the time that Air Force One landed in the Philippines, they were certain that this was a legit thing, but they couldn't find the guy. And so they were making a big scramble to figure out where this guy was and get him arrested before Trump left on his motorcade and went into the city. And they finally did. They tracked him down. The IP address that he had posted these threats on Twitter was they tracked down the place of living where this was tweeted out from, which is about a mile from where President Trump was due to be staying in a hotel. And from there, the guy wasn't in this apartment or house. He had left, but they were finally able to track him down to a park somewhere. Evidently, he and this ISIS affiliate, the 2 guys that were hanging out together, they found them both in a park. And so the Secret Service notified the Philippine National Police, who then just all swarmed the park with a bunch of people and took these 2 guys into custody. So it's pretty interesting. This is obviously a very serious threat, and it's also, I find it very interesting that they've kind of kept it under wraps for this long. And it's just now kind of coming to light.
I watched the first part of the documentary on Nat Geo last night. I DVR'd it, and from the outset, it was a tweet that he sent out with a picture of Lee Harvey Oswald. And then they cross-checked that to, I believe, his Instagram account, where he had other, because they kind of go through these things every day. There's, multiple threads, people saying things like that.
They have a tough job figuring out what is real and what isn't, and so they can't take a chance on just discounting something. They have to pursue it.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what they did. They went through his accounts, and what was really interesting was seeing how easily they had the guy on a map from the IP address, and then how easily they could access his other accounts through Instagram. They checked against Facebook and things like that to basically every time they saw something, he moved up a rung on the ladder of, okay, how serious we need to take this, whether it's just, some kind of rigmarole, and then to the point where, yeah, this is a legitimate threat and they needed to check it out. But the whole thing I have to highly recommend, because the documentary started before the threat even came in, because they were embedded with the Secret Service, and you got to see just the massive amount of work that goes into moving the president from one nation to another, all the way down to the glass that they bring, that they fuzzed out on the show. You weren't allowed to see the edges of the glass that they put in the front of the balcony that overlooked the bay in Manila there. It was absolutely incredible. So I highly recommend checking that out, because it gives you a little insight into just, how serious this kind of stuff is, and the man hours and the labor that goes into it. 2 C5As carrying all the motorcade and the hundreds of people and all that kind of stuff. Just incredible. So I find that kind of geek like that. I like that kind of stuff. So number 3 in the hot sheet is something that affects me in the real estate business, and that's that we're seeing the resurgence of zero-down subprime loans coming back into the market.
Larry can definitely talk to this too.
Larry's hopefully going to chime in on this.
Scary, oh my God.
So this was obviously a big reason behind our issues the last time around. The last time we had a housing collapse, and we're starting to see more and more of these now. And of course, the lenders are saying that there's more safeguards in place now, and that they're doing more to check the person's credit and the person's income history to try to avoid having this kind of disaster that we had last time. But still,
that may be true. The problem with that is it absolutely banks on the fact that inflation is going to supersede your payment history. In other words, the price of your home is going to continue to go up and up and up and up. Well, that's a double-edged sword. Plus, all of your taxes are going to go up at the same time. A 0% loan, zero down, is just a recipe for another disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, it may help to put a few more families into a house. The problem is it really jeopardizes their future.
It really does.
I would suggest strongly against even taking one of those out.
Definitely.
Well, and seeing what I see from the actual sale of the home aspect of it, I've been through a number. I mean, I started in 2000 selling houses, and to see what the market can do in terms of these different loan products that come out, that when the banks roll them out, it to me is almost a precursor to showing us that the market is going to come down at some point, because exactly what you said, with the inflation of prices, they have to roll these products out in order to keep people, whether it's the interest-only loans or the adjustable rate mortgages. And I can tell that it's something that you're kind of passionate about.
Oh my
because
gosh. Right, we watched the whole thing. So it's just a matter of being prudent in a credit union with your members' money. Why would you want to take that kind of a risk with your members' money in the loan sense? And then I don't believe you're doing the members that are getting those loans any justice. I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where people keep asking me, when do you think the market's going to go down, things like that. And because it can't continue to go up. We can't have
when you know that, let me know.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, is I'm looking into a crystal ball that's very fuzzy, but it's a question that comes quite a bit, especially on the investor side. The guys that used to go down and buy foreclosures and things like that, it's dang near evaporated, because everyone's making their payments. The economy's great. At some point, though, like I said, what goes up must come down, and exactly what you're saying is it's sad to see, because that it's going to have a negative impact on our economy locally and nationally in places that tend to go up really fast and down, whether it's Vegas, Miami, things like that. I mean, you see what happened in Miami in 2008. It was horrible. Well, number 4 here, Wes and I have been having not so much some fun at Sears' expense, but they've actually secured some last-minute financing to forego Chapter 11 reorganization.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
They've taken Chapter 11.
They're doing Chapter 11 instead. Yeah, so we've been following this for a while now, and everybody knows that Sears has had a lot of financial difficulty. We talked about this on our last show. They haven't turned a profit in, what was it, 8 years?
Something like, they had one profitable quarter since 2008 or something like that.
And so basically it was coming to a head here because today, Monday, they had a $134 million debt payment due. And so the thought was over the weekend that we just came through that they were going to declare bankruptcy. The question was Chapter 7 liquidation versus Chapter 11 reorganization. A number of their creditors were pushing them to do Chapter 7 and liquidate because they figured that was their best shot at recouping some of their money as opposed to stringing it along with Chapter 11 and going on and on. So there was a big groundswell from, like I said, from some of the creditors to do Chapter 7, but evidently they, at the last minute, they made it sound like on Sunday evening they secured enough financing to do a Chapter 11 reorganization instead. And they issued a statement saying that they've got enough funding now to go through the end of the year, basically, to get them through the Christmas season. And I guess their hopes are in that time, they said, that they can find a buyer to take them on in the next couple months here. But it seems like they've been in such bad shape for such a long time that it's just kind of prolonging the obvious here. But what do you think, Larry?
Well, they also announced they're closing 140 stores or
that's
something
correct.
like that. So it'll take a while before that hits their profit and loss statement in a positive way. Their liquidation sales will create some cash, but it's just a matter of what kind of plan they have for the future, how they claw out of Chapter 11 and
right.
or who picks them up.
And I believe as part of the Chapter 11 agreement, I thought I heard on the radio this morning that the CEO was forced out as part of the reorg. So
probably a pretty good idea. He's not leading them too well
right.
so far. But they also have, they have some valuable brands under their umbrella, and so that, from the articles that we've read, that's kind of what's giving them the hope that they're going to, whether it's Kenmore, I believe, and their home improvement side seems to be doing fairly well. It's, Wes and I were talking actually before you got here about Craftsman, and we talked about it last week. Craftsman used to have a really good name.
Stellar name.
In tools, I mean, that's my son and I, when we would go look for tools, we were always looking for Craftsman, and in recent years, we've seen that lifetime warranty that they kind of traded upon. Well, it either was not there, or it was reduced to a 1-year warranty. And so, when you kind of see that kind of thing go away, we stopped buying it. We just wouldn't purchase it because that's why we were going to spend the extra money, was because of that warranty. And if they're not going to be there any longer, who knows what's going to happen to Craftsman. But
right.
if it's not there, we're not going to shop there.
Those brands, somebody will pick up those brands.
And we actually had talked about right before we went on air that last year that Stanley Black & Decker did buy the Craftsman name and basically leased it back to Sears for the next 15 years if they're going to make it that long. And in so doing, now as of this year, Black & Decker Stanley has licensed out the Craftsman line to Lowe's.
Okay.
So they're
Makes
starting
sense.
to spread out now. But yeah,
the name has a lot of history to it.
Absolutely.
A lot of value.
Well, and you'd think that the one thing that in these articles you see over and over again is that these online retailers, whether it be Amazon or the online side to Target to Lowe's, Home Depot, and things like that, they've made that quote-unquote pivot to that market, and Sears just seems so far behind.
Yeah.
You would have thought that their CEO would have taken them in that direction, but evidently not. Well, number 5 here, we're going to have a little bit of fun with you, Larry, and we wanted to see.
That's what I live for.
Exactly right. Why don't you go ahead, Wes?
So I thought we'd throw a little lighthearted prediction on the table for all of us to throw out some names for the 2020 ticket on the Democrat side for presidential race. Who do you think is going to comprise the ticket to go against Trump and Pence? If you had to say right now, who do you think the ticket's going to be?
If I had to say right now, other than coming up with a name, I don't see anybody on the horizon that even makes President Trump and Vice President Pence nervous.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think Joe Biden has a shot. I think if I put a couple of bucks on it, it would be on Biden.
Yeah.
Other than that, it would just be a dice roll.
And the one thing, and that was my top thought, is Biden, and I think that he would probably take Kamala Harris out of California because she's in the vein of Obama in that she's the young progressive type that can draw in the youth vote. So I can see that being a ticket, a Biden-Harris ticket. My 1B would be Michael Bloomberg because, well, I know I'm definitely not a fan of his, but he is what Trump is to the left. That is to say, he is not a career politician; he is a businessman. So he's kind of like the left version of Trump. So if I always thought, I just think that if he thinks that Trump made a go of it, that he sees himself as kind of like Trump, just of the other ilk, and that that could appeal to a Democrat base much as the way that Trump appealed to some Republicans. So,
yeah,
I think that would be more scary than Biden.
Well, definitely he's a lot further left than Biden.
Oh my God,
Biden can pick up the mainstream vote, but yeah,
absolutely. And I think that Biden. I agree with both of you that he's probably got the best shot because he was vice president, and as we've talked about before, he's got that appeal to people of, as Holly has said, the Uncle Joe, you can relate to him as kind of a normal person. He laughs, he jokes, he doesn't seem quite as stuffy, as opposed, not opposed, but Kamala Harris, I think, is a little bit too far out there. Maybe she could capture the California vote, but I just think when it comes to progressive, she's a little farther out there than the nation could swallow, I think.
Yeah.
I think we should make sure that we don't discount somebody coming out of the weeds, though. And Jimmy Carter was the governor of Georgia.
Mm-hmm. There's always those dark horses that come out of nowhere. Absolutely.
Bill Clinton, the governor of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Barack Obama was a state legislator and then a junior senator, and so I wouldn't discount somebody kind of showing up and
another
carrying the folks.
Another dark horse we had talked about before was Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, who resigned from CEO, retired, whatever you want to call it. And there was a lot of whisperings behind the scenes. Was he leaving Starbucks to try to maybe mount a run for 2020? So that, to me, that could potentially be a dark horse.
I've heard his name bandied around a little bit.
So
to see.
If President Obama came from the state legislature, Larry, if you get elected
that
here,
would be no.
We're already going to be able to put that out there. It's breaking news here at KCP. Larry Hoff will not run for president in 2020.
The first election is November 6th of this
year.
There
you go. Exactly. That's what we're focused on.
Get over that one.
Yeah, right. That's it. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. Well, you didn't.
Have you been asked that before?
No. God,
no, what the heck,
No.
You got to ask the questions, right?
No.
Well, do you want to introduce the main topics here?
So that's it for our headline news. So we're going to move on into our main topics that we wanted to discuss with you, particularly a couple of the big initiatives on the November ballot coming up, as well as a Supreme Court decision that is not exactly recent. It's a little older, but it's something that affected us locally and on the state level too, but a lot locally with the McCleary decision and the labor strife with all the teachers at the start of this school year. So we'll back it up and start from the top, though. Our first one being Initiative 1639, which is most commonly known as the gun control bill. This, from everything, basically just the talking points, the bullet points are raising the purchase age for rifles from 18 to 21, and basically, go ahead.
For semi-auto.
Correct. And then, and basically including anything all the way down to a 22 as now a semi-auto
Well, anything
rifle.
that's a semi-automatic. The 22 I had as a teenager that I shot cans with
in the backyard
when I was that young. Is now considered, or would be considered, an assault rifle.
Right.
And then to suggest that would be ridiculous would be giving it some credit.
Absolutely, and that term assault rifle is just bantered around so much now. It's obviously it has no meaning in the first place, but the more it gets used, and it's just basically everything now is an assault rifle, and it's gotten out of control. One of the kind of under the radar things that I had read about, and maybe you can shed some more light on this too, is that written into the bill is allows for collecting of buyers' info, and which
medical information,
which could, you know, the old slippery slope of getting down into getting a registry of basically a gun registry.
It actually alludes to the fact that a registry would be developed. In some cases, it talks about an option that the police would have. In other cases, it suggests will maintain. But I thought you were going toward the medical information waiver.
And I read that briefly. Go ahead and take that, because you know more than me. So.
You will, upon buying a semi-automatic rifle, you sign a confidentiality waiver that allows your medical information to be shared at will, actually, as long as you have that semi-automatic rifle. And at will is not, that's not fair. It's actually shared with the court system and is just significantly more easily obtained as opposed to held in confidence based on the HIPAA laws.
Right.
And is this something that you think is driven by the mental health? And is that what they're trying to find with this, is because of that? Because if you have a heart issue or something like that, I can't see that would be a reason to share anything like that. For me, it would be that, and this is just my guess as to the authors of the bill, is that they're looking for mental health type information.
Well, it certainly starts there, and yet there is already that legislation on the books. If indeed a court deems you sufficiently mentally ill, your firearm purchase capability is removed.
So if that is already on the books, why would we need something like that? I can't see any need for them to share my health information with anyone else other than exactly what Wes said, is to try to build some kind of registry that will blacklist me for whatever reason. And I never know, and that it comes down to what my doctor thinks of me at that point, and then that's a whole ball of worms, or a can of worms.
Yeah, it doesn't get into the specifics about the sharing concept, but on the surface, it's more than scary. However, another very I guess the word is obnoxious part of this I-1639 is the fact that you have to store your firearms. You have to lock them up. Yeah. So, and locking them up for the folks that are promoting this, they would suggest that that's an okay thing to do because it does X, it does Y. Well, locking up your firearms, first of all, removes your constitutional right to protect yourselves, at least partially, if not completely. When I get elected on November 6th, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Olympia. So my wife, if indeed this initiative gets passed, will have to say, just a minute, Mr. Bad Guy.
Exactly.
Let me open the vault and get out a firearm to protect myself when my husband isn't here. I just can't imagine that being okay on any aspect.
And I think this is the thing they try to bury, that is the pro 1639, the writers of the bill, is that they want to paint it as it's protecting children from accessing guns, but that doesn't take into account situations like yours where you've got middle-aged or older folks that there are no kids in the home, yet they're still going to be held to the same rule, presenting this very issue that you just talked about.
You know, all of us, let me back up, certainly I did, grew up with firearms in the house. And as my son was growing up, I used different types of secured avenues, vaults, trigger locks, and made sure that they were secured. But secured doesn't mean out of control. I mean out of your access. And what 1639 does is it actually suggests safe and secure storage. It doesn't define that, but it leaves it so open for civil lawsuits, for criminal lawsuits, that it's actually a Class C felony.
I know, that's what blew me away, was the felony aspect.
It's actually, if somebody breaks into your house and actually steals a rifle that has a trigger lock on it, and commits a crime, you can be charged with a felony.
That's what blows me away, is because I'm a person that I keep my gun near my bed because of exactly what you're saying. If I'm, and more along the lines, when I lived in Vancouver, I lived in a one-story house, and it was just me between my kids, and so I needed to have quick access to that, and I had a biometric safe that I kept it in, quick, 2 seconds to get into it. Still do, but to this point of, let me go to my full vault that I keep all of my guns in, whether it's a pistol, a rifle, anything like, or a shotgun. If I've got to keep that stuff in there, how am I going to get this person to stop and hold on just a minute? I know we're being,
or even, we can take a look at the dynamics of a crime scene, but even a biometric safe. If my wife is surprised at night by a burglar or somebody standing in there, chances are very good that her ability to open a biometric safe is just not going to be there.
Yeah, you're under stress.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it just takes away our constitutional rights, and it's bad on so many fronts. But the ones we've talked about here are obviously the major ones.
And I was happy to see, because as you may or may not have guessed, I'm against 1639, but I was happy to see that the Washington State Patrol Police Union came out strongly against it as well. They've issued a lot of statements. I've seen some ads they've taken out online coming out against this.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so that was
confidence.
That was nice to see. Yeah.
And to the point of, kids being around guns and things like that, if you have guns in the home, it is your job as the gun owner to educate your children as to what you can and can't do, regardless of whether they're in a safe or not. Those kids need to understand the power of a firearm and how much damage they can cause. That falls on you as a gun owner, and you would hope that people would know that kind of stuff. And I understand that we need to know that not everyone's going to be like that, but to take it to such a degree where we're not going to be able to protect ourselves, it's almost as if the bad guys are going to be smiling and hoping that this gets passed at some point.
This initiative does nothing to protect children. I mean, you can run over to Portland and buy anything you want to buy. The other piece that you mentioned it a little bit earlier about the age extension. I struggle with the fact that a man or a woman, a young man or a young woman that comes out of the Army and from serving our country gets trained on these types of firearms, has one probably beside their cot for 2 years, and still then can't buy one when they come back to Washington.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I just don't understand that. And I'm voting no in an excited way, and hope other people do.
Absolutely, it's one of those things that we can't see our rights taken away like that.
And you mentioned too with the age deal. It's the same kind of thing. You mentioned the young kids. So a 19, 20-year-old kid out on their own for the first time living in an apartment, they now can't protect themselves. If you're a 19-year-old kid, you got your first apartment, you're probably not that well off financially at 19, so you could be living in a lower income area that's a little seedy, a little sketchy, and now you can't even protect yourself.
So I have to apologize. It's the first error of a podcast that you shouldn't make. You should silence your phone.
Oh, Larry, I do it all the time.
Well,
my phone
you're in good company.
I have all these screens, they're dinging. It takes usually about 15 minutes in, I figure it out.
I apologize for that.
No worries at all.
What I didn't want is that my phone ringing to kind of minimize the strength of this discussion. Because I-1639 is a serious issue. Child safety is a serious issue.
Absolutely.
And yet, understanding what rights we have under the Second Amendment, and then blending those to how we keep our kids safe is a huge discussion point.
Absolutely.
And I apologize for the ringing.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No worries.
Anything else you want to add on 1639 before we move on?
No, vote no.
Yeah, there you go. Well, from there we'll jump into 1631, which is commonly known as the carbon tax bill. And again, there's all sorts of hidden stuff, as you see in almost any bill that a legislature would present or that is proposed. In that this is obviously the carbon taxing and trying to cap greenhouse emissions, but there's a lot of carve-outs from what I read in terms of the larger corporations who would potentially be the biggest polluters of all have their own special exemptions.
Well, there are. By the way, it's a 38-page document, and if anybody's going to vote yes on this, it should almost be mandatory to read it. There are some carve-outs, and there's a coal plant in the state that's about to become compliant. They're carved out, but the carve-outs aren't necessarily the bigger issue here for me. Although there's a lot of television commercials about those carve-outs now as we speak. The bigger issues for me is the fact that the initiative really doesn't do anything. It has no objectives written into it. It raises hundreds of millions of dollars in the first year, and hundreds of millions of dollars are dispersed via a 15-person politically appointed council that indeed can invest in the organizations they came from. There's no restrictions there. It's just a bloated piece of government that adds to our the more bloated government that we all want to put on a diet.
And to that point, what you just said, what I found interesting is, because you talked about there's no real teeth to the bill, there's no specific direction of how things are supposed to be apportioned, is I've read from a couple of climate scientists, people on the left, that are against this because, for almost the same contrasting reason, they don't think it doesn't have enough teeth in it. They don't like it because it's not specific enough. So it's interesting that there's pushback on both the left and the right for different reasons. It
would be fun to debate the climate change issue if indeed there were some specific objectives. This one has none, number one. Number two, it's a political nightmare. It's just this 15-member board scares me more than I can even suggest.
Yeah, it's the old unelected bureaucrats.
And the only kind of direction it has is 75% of the funds collected are supposed to go for clean air and the environment, 20% clean water, and then the next 5%, I believe, in communities, and that's almost the extent of the specific objectives. Then it's just whatever this board decides, whatever they can pass by the legislature, depending on how the legislature is comprised, who's in the majority. It could be more than dangerous in the allocation side, but on top of that, it raises the costs of everything you touch. Your utility bills are going to go up. If you eat a popsicle that was delivered by a truck, that's going to go up. And at the pump, when you take your son's trucks to the gas pump, it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 40 cents, depending on what year you're in.
Yeah, because they can raise this progressively
for
many years.
So it has no objectives. It's a bloated addition to government, and it's very expensive to all of our citizens. So there's no upside here. If indeed you're a climate change advocate to all of the degrees, just like you mentioned, this isn't the initiative. this isn't the right direction.
And we see, in fact, I was talking to Wes yesterday about the front page of the Clark County section of the Columbian. They utilize the all local politics side article that they have every Sunday and a couple of times during the week, and they went after Jamie Herrera Butler and how she came out against exactly what you were saying in the fact that it's going to raise our taxes on fuel and things like that. And it was so disconcerting to see them use these wide-ranging basic words to kind of discriminate against that, saying, well, what she's saying was wrong because she was on a so-called conservative-leaning talk show of some sort. And I said, I thought the newspaper was supposed to deliver the facts. In the article that I read, there were no real facts. It was all subjective words, and it was that kind of thing that scares me when we've got things. It's 38 pages long, like you said. How can you deliver any type of information on something in a 200-word article that there were no facts in? They were just going after her and the gas tax, and it's just a small picture of the left leaning it. And I actually think the Columbian can do a relatively good job at playing both sides, but this was a blatant attempt to get people swayed towards 1631 without any facts present whatsoever.
So I believe Washington is the fourth cleanest state in the nation based on carbon emissions. It ranks right at the top. So if you look at this initiative, you kind of pulled back the onion, so to speak, and you the fact that it's a bloated piece of government might be debated by the other side of the aisle. But what you can't debate here is literally the fact that there are no specifics, and that it does raise the cost of living for all of our citizens with no true objectives. So it may be, again, the climate change advocates might be really involved with fighting for this based on making a move towards some sort of climate change goal. But I'd encourage them to read this before they vote yes.
Absolutely. And we want to, we just want to see people, take the time to go out there and educate yourself on all of these initiatives. Wes and I were just talking, we got our voters pamphlet in the mail. Take the time to go through it. Make your own decision on it, but really try to get the facts. Don't believe whether it's a television commercial. Don't believe whether it's the newspaper. Go make your own decision. And
boy, that's a great point. Even I'm going to throw politics back in here, but even as a candidate, I've been now to, I believe, 4 or 5 different forums, and all of the forums probably have somewhere between 20 and 50 people in there. But short of that, people have to make an opinion about what I will do or what my opponent will do or what other candidates will do for them or against their beliefs. So it takes a little bit of research. Don't just assume that a Republican is going to be your best friend or a Democrat's going to be your best friend. Take a look at the individual. Take a look at their background, see where they came from. Try and get behind their core beliefs. I actually got an email from an individual that suggests he's a Democrat and that he doesn't believe in anything that I believe in. I can't wait to talk to this individual, and I'm going to give him a call or try to contact him, because I want him to understand where I'm coming from, as opposed to simply try and interpret a website or something. Try and contact these candidates.
And so often, to me, it strikes me as people like to take the easy way out and look at the letter after your name, the R or the D, and just go with the letter. They don't bother looking into the person, because there's bad apples on both sides and there's good apples on both sides. So you're not going to know that by looking at the letter after their name. You need to do your own research.
In one of the last forums, a very, I'm sure, good person came up and alluded to the fact that Republicans have no hearts. She talked about it was only Democrats that took care of people. On the stage was Paul Harris from the 17th District. He's on the healthcare committee in the House and does marvelous things in that regard. Senator Rivers is on the healthcare committee in the Senate and again a champion on that committee. I served on the Dornbecker Children's Hospital Foundation Board for 6 years and was often taken to my knees based on the fact on how much we helped the kids and how much help was still needed. But literally to come out and kind of differentiate Democrats and Republicans by virtue of how much they care for kids or the well-being of our citizens is a hard place to start.
And it's sad because it seems like as a society, that's what it's boiled down to now, is just talking points and party tribalism or politics, what have you. And people now don't want to do the work to go out there and read up on people or initiatives or whatever.
Or read the initiative.
Right.
Again, eliminate the fact for a second that you've heard that it's a Republican effort to vote no or a Democrat effort to vote yes or no. Make your own decisions. Read the 38-page initiative and make up your own mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Larry, I had a question come in from a small business owner, Jeremy Deegan with Northwest Power Stroke, and I hope you don't mind. He actually posted a question here for you.
Good, let's have it.
He says, how are you going to make small business appealing to the entrepreneur that is afraid to take the leap? And how can I further protect myself from false claims against little guys like him? And maybe, Jeremy, you can chime in and clarify false claims, but to the small business question, what is it that you could possibly help them with in the legislature?
Let me come back to that for a second. False claims are just it's almost a product of our society today. If indeed something doesn't go absolutely right, you jump on social media and you can really hurt a small business that way, and that's sad. Mm-hmm. Some folks are deserving of some negative publicity, but I have seen a lot that aren't, and that's a sad commentary. What I plan to do in the legislature is kind of continue my 35-year career in credit unions. I was a small business champion. We tried to figure out ways to help our small businesses that came in and look to us for some financial guidance. Small businesses today struggle, I'm guessing, regularly with regulations that just don't make any sense, and they're depending on what industry you talk to, there's a variety of those. But my goal is to try and take some common sense into the legislature, and if there's a regulation that says you have to paint your front door yellow on Wednesdays, I'm going to ask why that is.
And we appreciate that.
And as opposed to worry about being elected or some sense of what this group would like or that group would like, it boils down to common sense. Why do we have some of these things that are inhibiting our success? And there could be logical reasons on the pro and the con, but when small businesses come to me, those will be the first questions I ask.
And we appreciate that. I mean, as a small business ourselves, as we sit here as a small, I guess, media company, if we're going to say what we are, we appreciate that kind of thing. And having somebody there that represents us and that is, like you said, a champion for our cause, because we're not going to make the biggest difference maybe in your campaign or something like that in terms of making a contribution. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about other politicians that are looking for that type of thing. They're looking for a handout or something like that.
No politician that I know, certainly from our Clark County arena, will give you the ability to buy their vote. that's unfortunately, contributions are important in these goofy campaigns. But that aside, we have folks that really want to make a difference in the lives of small businesses and actually all of the citizens. So that whole campaign contribution isn't an issue. What I'm excited to do is take a look at this agency or that agency and understand what their objectives may be or may not be, for that matter, and then see how it affects our small business. Take a look at our logging companies or our floor covering companies or our landscape companies or our real estate folks. There are as many of a diversified employment base here in Clark County that you can imagine. And all of them have some similar challenges and some different challenges. So I'm looking forward to kind of digging into those and see if I can make a difference and help this kind of path to success for them.
We appreciate that. So as we segue into some other questions we had, and you talk about Republicans and not caring about people. Well, for you in particular, you do a lot of work with veterans and with Dion Hess and things of that nature. And so we kind of wanted to, talk about that a little bit and to shine some light on how fun that is for you and some of the different activities that you've taken part in.
Dion Hess is one in a million. He devotes the majority of any free time he has to figuring out how to kind of assist veterans in just enjoying life, giving them a reason to smile where they might not have had a reason before. I participated in a fishing event with him that he really organized, and I think there were 200 and some veterans, and
really?
It was just a marvelous day.
Wow.
We're coming up on a waterfowl hunt on Veterans Day, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to be in one of the blinds with one of the veterans. I am a veteran, by the way. Mm-hmm. That's one reason I enjoy this, on top of just helping Dion, but I'm going to be in one of the blinds helping one of the veterans enjoy their duck hunt. The other group in town, which does a lot of very wonderful things for veterans, is the Community Military Action Committee, CMAC. And they meet a couple times a month. And their goal is simply to provide assistance to all of the veterans and help in a military kind of sense. You don't have to be a veteran to join. Quite a few businesses do, but they are extremely active here in the local communities and organize a lot of the veterans events. And Dion is part of that.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for us.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to share with us or talk about that is on your mind? As we get closer to Election Day here, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Are you excited? You get nervous? What is the feeling of a candidate?
I'm excited for Election Day. Well, actually, the ballots come out this Friday on the 19th. Mm-hmm. So I've been campaigning for over a year. And coming into this campaign, I didn't understand how much of a sacrifice it would be for my family. So I have gained a tremendous amount of respect for candidates from Democrats, Republicans, Independents, from all sides of any aisle. It's a huge commitment for the campaign commitment is huge. Very little free time on your hands that you would otherwise be enjoying your family with, but that aside, we all of the candidates have to have a stronger calling, and for me, we talked a little bit about it on the business side. I want to see if we can't streamline some of these speed bumps for business And the old adage of you're running to make a difference is overused, but I think that's what drives us all. If we didn't think we could make a difference, we wouldn't run. I think I can bring my business experience, my kind of core belief in common sense, and a conservative common sense to the legislature. So I hope the 18th district sees that the same way, and you get to vote. Elections have consequences. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll see what happens on November 6th.
I actually had one more question come in. Do you feel like and this is from Andy Lavelle, do you feel like the mail-in only ballots this year are going to affect voter turnout?
Well, two answers to that question. This year, you don't even have to put a stamp on it because that's all paid. At least in the primary, I think the primary returns was about 38%. That's still pretty sad for getting a ballot mailed to your house and not even having to put a stamp on it. I miss the polling places.
I kind of like it too.
He's in that row too.
I miss them.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to make a commitment. You had to say, well, I have to get up and go vote. I have to stand in a booth and pull a lever and mark a ballot. I miss those. However, our state has a mail-in ballot, so I just would encourage everybody to just take a look at the ballot, take a look at your voter's pamphlet, and make an informed decision. I would love to see the percentage of voters go up. It seems like it's voting has not garnered the same sense of importance that it had when I was a kid, and that was a couple of years ago. But it just, if only 38% vote in an election, what's the other 62% thinking?
Yeah. They're still complaining, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, there you go.
They're still out there complaining.
Well, I hope, to answer his question, I hope it increases the percentage of voters in the general election. I'm not entirely sure that this, spending the money on the postage is going to make a difference, but I hope it does. We'll see.
In this day and age, it's got to be easy for anyone to go out there and put any effort forward, it seems like. And I guess they're trying to, by paying for the postage and things of that nature, they're trying to take away another barrier of entry. But again, you got to have some pride. Like we both agree, it was fun to go to the polling stations and things like that. And I can remember back when I was 18 and I did it for the first time, it was a pretty big deal. I mean, it was exciting to, even if, people say, well, I'm canceling your vote out. Well, I don't care. I still get to do it, and it's my right. So that's exciting. You have anything?
And I was going to say, we had talked before about doing your own research as we look back on the topics that we discussed. And if folks at home want to do their own research about Larry, if they want to know more about Larry, they can go to www.electlarryhoff.com, and you've got a lot more details on there than we could get to in this time frame.
Well, and on top of that, give me a call. I mean, I would enjoy meeting with anybody or having a quick conversation on the telephone. A lot of times, you can't put everything you believe in a paragraph, and websites, although they're very handy to give somebody kind of a quick shot on your thoughts. When you talk to somebody, when they can see your body language sitting next to them, it makes a difference. They can pick up whether or not you're just being politically expedient or truly believe in what you're talking about.
Right. Absolutely, and that's why we enjoy having you here. I mean, we've really gotten to know you since, I think, was it April or May the first time you joined us?
I can't remember. It's been a while.
I know I was in a coat and a hat because I was
34.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That was a long time ago. Just a few years after you were a kid, though, right? Well, again, Larry, we thank you very much. And again, Larry is running for 18th Legislative District here in Washington.
Position 2.
Position 2. Thank you very much. www.electlarryhoff.com is the website you can go to. I'll put your contact information into the after show notes on our website, www.kineticchaos.com, so that you guys can take a look at that and possibly get in touch with you if you so please.
Call me anytime.
Sounds good. Well, do you have anything else, Wes?
I got nothing. Just thanks for joining us again, and best of luck. We're getting down to the final stretch here, so best of luck.
20 days and change.
There you go.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Larry. We will see everyone on Thursday. Bye-bye. Facebook, thank you very
guys
much
for joining us.
We appreciate everyone and their questions, and well, there's Steve right there. We will see you guys, again on Thursday, and like I said, I'll have everything in the after show notes at kineticchaos.com. So if you have any questions, if you want to email us, I'll have your information in there so we can get that information out there. Thank you, guys.